Hello everyone, and welcome to another Ren'Py tutorial. I don't have my camera running today. I'm having some issues out of my capture card, so I'm going to be going with just audio and screen capture today, but I should have that up and running within a couple of videos. Alright, as usual, I've got something really cool for today. Today I'm going to show you how to do a navigation screen, so you can give your player a free roaming aspect throughout your game, or maybe even just on certain parts of your game. I'm going to show you how to make that conditional, where they're not able to use it all the time, just when you want them to. And I'm also going to show you how to add a button to the quick menu at the bottom of the screen, where we'll be able to add our navigation option down there. So before we get started, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and let's go ahead and jump into today's tutorial. So first of all, I want to talk for just a moment about the quick menu, and I'm going to go ahead and pull that up and just show you what it looks like if you're unfamiliar with it, because you may not have even noticed it. But down here at the bottom, when we're in the game, we have this menu that has back, history, skip, auto save, quick load, and prefs. That's preferences. So you can click on one of these and it will bring up the associated screen. And I'm going to show you a quick way that you can make one of those yourself so you can add extra functionality to your quick menu. Oh, and I actually just realized that mine is cut off a little bit. There we go. Now you can see it. Back, history, skip, autosave, quick load, and preferences. Alright. Now let us go ahead and start customizing our game. So I'm going to show you first of all the setup that I have. So the script file that I have open is the same one that I've been using in my object-oriented programming tutorials. But you can use whatever script file you want. You don't have to have it set up exactly like this, but it should still work. We're gonna add to it in a moment. A couple of other things that I have. I've created a new file called locations.rpy, and this is just going to be our different locations that we can jump to from our navigation menu. And I've got some new images as well. I've got some new backgrounds, like I've got a classroom, a bedroom, let me see, a kitchen, a couple of other different things. And I also have my images for my navigation menu. Like I've got my idle image and my hover image for each one. And my idle image is just my hover image, but with kind of a glowing purple halo around it. And that is the same for all of my rooms that I have. And the way that I created those is I just went into Photoshop and I took the full background for each one of these and I scaled it down to 20%. And then I put them all on a transparent background, organized them, laid them out how I wanted them to, and then I added the purple halo around using layer effects. And then when I exported them, I would just hide all of them except for one. And then I would do a version without effects, and then a version with effects. And then I'd go to the next one and do without effects, and then with effects, and just exported each one of those. I've also got a couple of issues with this. I was about to go back and fix them, but I went on ahead and left them the way that they are to show you a possible issue that can happen when you're doing this yourself. And also, I would go and do a full tutorial on how to do this in Photoshop. That's a little bit beyond what we're doing today. However, if there's any interest in that, leave me a comment below, and I'll see about doing some full Photoshop tutorials. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set up our image buttons for our navigation screen. And I've done a tutorial on image buttons before. I will link to that above if you want a more thorough description, because I might go through this part a little bit quickly. But what I've done is I've gone to my screens.rpy folder, and I'm just going to scroll all the way to the bottom. And I've already created a new heading called Extra Screens. So I always like to do this just so I can keep track of where all my user screens are. If I end up using a lot of them, I might split them off into separate files, maybe create a dedicated folder for all of my screen scripts. But for now, I think this will serve our purposes just fine. Alright, so we're going to create a new screen called nav screen. So I'm going to say screen nav underscore screen. And I'm going to add a black background. First of all, bg underscore black.png. This is another file that I created in Photoshop. I just opened up a blank canvas that was the same size as my Ren'Py project, and I just used the paint bucket tool to paint it black, and I exported that as bg_black.png. We're going to set modal to true, and then we're going to start putting in our image buttons. So image button auto bg_bedroom, and then this here is just the name of my file with one exception that I'll get to in a moment. Oops. Never can find my % key when I need it. There we go. So what this is the name of my file. So I'm doing bedroom first. So my bedroom file, where is it? There we go. So I have two different images, bg_bedroom_nav_idle.png, and the same one but with hover instead of idle. So the idle one is just the static image, and the hover is the static image with the purple halo around it. So what this is doing, I'm creating an automatic image button. So it's automatically going to change that image in kind of a smart way. So whenever I put %s at the end, that's kind of a wild card. It's like a placeholder letting it know that that last part of the file name will change between idle and hover. There are a couple of other different versions you can use, but that's pretty much the bare minimum. What you need is one for idle and one for hover. But that's what that %s placeholder is for. So it will automatically switch between those two images. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set focus mask, oops, if I can spell that correctly, focus mask to true. And this is probably not going to affect us in this particular image. Basically, focus mask is telling you that the image itself, like the entire image square, is going to be the button, even if there is a transparent section in there. So if you do images that have any kind of transparency, if you don't set focus mask equal to true, if you click on the transparent part on the button, it'll be as if you're clicking on whatever is behind the button, which could be something or it could be nothing. But setting focus mask to true is just a good habit to get into. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set my tooltips, and this is another thing that I do often that I don't always use, but again, I like to get in the habit of putting it in there anyway. We're going to set our tooltip. So there are ways that you can, and again, I hardly ever do this, but you can set a tooltip on screen. So whenever you hover over it, it'll let you know, whatever you're hovering over. So you could set it to say bedroom whenever you're hovering over the bedroom image. There we go, and then unhovered. Screen tooltip, and then when it's unhovered, the tooltip is going to be nothing. So I'm just going to put an empty string in there. And then the last thing that we need is our action, and this is what's actually going to happen whenever you click on the button. And we're going to call a label. And that label is going to be bedroom. And we will create our labels in just a moment, but we'll just go ahead and leave that there for now. All right, and I'm really quickly going to go ahead and create the rest of these image buttons, so I will skip past this part so you don't have to sit here and watch me do this. There we go. So now I have all of my image buttons created, and all I did is I just copied that first one and just pasted it another 4 times because I'm using 5 total buttons, 5 total locations. And I just changed, bedroom, bedroom, bedroom to classroom, 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 hallway, 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 kitchen, 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 etc. For the office as well. I think that's all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, that is correct. Alright, and that's all I have to do for my image buttons and for my screen. Like our nav screen is pretty well completely done now. Alright, the next thing that I'm going to do is we're going to create our locations. And for this one, I've created an entirely new script called locations.rpy. If your location scripts are really long, which they probably will be if you're doing a full game, I would recommend breaking this up into different files. What I would probably do actually is to create a locations folder, and then inside that folder have a separate .rpy script for each one of your locations. But for now, just to keep things simple, I'm going to go ahead and put all of mine in just in this one spot, this one script, because mine are going to be really short. All right, so I'm going to create label bedroom. Let's just pass for right now. I'm going to do that for each one of my locations. There we go. So when I created my screens a moment ago, each one has this call action. And what that's going to do is it's going to call the label that I specified here in parentheses and in quotations. So for instance, if I click on hallway, it's going to call the hallway label. So it's basically going to jump here, or call this one rather, and do whatever it says in that block. Alright, so the first thing I have to do when I'm here is I've got to hide our navigation screen. Otherwise it's going to stay on the screen when we go to the new location, and we don't want that. So hide nav screen. And we'll go ahead and dissolve it, and then I'm going to change the scene. Scene BG bedroom with dissolve. And the BG bedroom, that's just like the full size version of the image button that we created. I will show you that. Let me see. There we go, so that's the background that it's going to call. And let's just go ahead and give a quick message. You are now in the bedroom. And then we'll return, and for now that will effectively end our game. So much like I did with my image buttons, I'm just going to copy this and paste it for each one of those. And I'm just going to change a couple of different things. So we'll change that to BG underscore classroom, and then you are now in the classroom. Alright, and let me go ahead and do that for the other ones real quick. Alright, there we go. So that is all my labels created. Pretty simple there. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set up our nav option on the quick menu. So for this one, I'm going to go back to screens.rpy, and we've got to actually look for where our quick menu is, and it should be right around line 250 in your code. If you haven't messed this one up, or if you haven't messed around with this one too much, that should be around where it is. There we go. So yeah, mine, oops, a little bit higher. There we go. Yeah, mine starts around 240. But this is what we're looking for. So remember that when we were in the game, we had back, history, skip, autosave, quick load, and preferences. And so this is where all of those are. And these are just text buttons, which are kind of like image buttons, but it dynamically creates a text label that you can click on instead of having a full an actual image there. It just creates a little bit of text. All right, so let's go ahead and get to work on this one. We're just going to add a new text button on the bottom that we are going to call. So we're just going to add a new text button on the bottom. And basically, I'm just going to copy the style that they used on these above here. You're going to precede this with an underscore, and we're going to put in, we're just going to say nav. And then just like we did with our image buttons, we've got to do an action. And for this one, we are going to show a screen. So we're just going to call show nav screen, and that's the name of our screen that we created way down at the bottom. So whenever we click on that nav text button, it's going to show our navigation screen. Then we can click on one of our images, and that'll take us to that spot in the code. Alright, so now we should have a functional navigation screen. We're not 100% finished just yet. There's a couple little bits we have to talk about, but let's go ahead and test this right now and see how it works. Alright, and the project runs, no problems yet. So let's run that, and now we have this nav option at the bottom, so let's go ahead and click that, and we bring up our nav screen. And you're going to see in a moment the first issue that we have, and I'm going to show you how to avoid this. So when we hover over everything, everything seems to work pretty well. Except there is a very, very minor bug that you can't really see right now. Some of you might be noticing it. But whenever we go from one of these top ones to one of these bottom ones, when I hover over it, it doesn't select it until I get like, I mean, that was about 2/3 of the way over. Same thing with this one. It won't actually select it till I get about 2/3 over. And the reason why is because, oh, there it is doing it on this one now too, is because I told it to create these buttons dynamically. So the program is deciding, Ren'Py is deciding when these buttons are selected. So basically what I did is I'm creating each one of these images individually. This is not one image, but Ren'Py, again, is actually stacking these 5 images into one scene. And I created them a little bit too large. You can see how they're overlapping a little bit, and then especially if you take this halo into account, this outer glow, it really stretches that image way out. So what it's doing is it's waiting until the very end of that image before it's allowing me to select that other button. So the way to fix that is just by spacing your images out a little bit more. Maybe have like a couple at the top and then 3 way down at the bottom or something like that, or maybe even have them on the sides of the screen, and also to use much smaller outer glows. You just want to make these images pretty small. So again, if I were to go back and do this, that's what I would do. But for now, I think this works okay just for illustrative purposes. Alright, let's see how they work. If I click on one, let's click on the bedroom. There we go. It says you are now in the bedroom. And then my return statement. Oops. Oh, yeah, I forgot. I still had her her dialogue there. So that's what it's jumping to. Alright. But yeah, there are ways that we can fix that. Actually, let's go ahead and do that right now. So now you can see that I can jump to that navigation screen in the middle of dialogue, which causes some really strange behavior. So we want to make it where you can only, the player can only access the nav screen when we want them to access the nav screen. And that is very simple to do. All we have to do is drop in an if statement, and we're going to create a new variable. Let's go ahead and do this in our script file. I'm going to create a new variable. I'm just going to call it nav. So we're going to say default nav equals false. And I'm going to create a comment here saying if true, nav button is visible. So basically, we're going to make it so whenever we set this variable to true, then it's going to have that nav option down at the bottom. However, if this is set to false, then it is not going to have the nav option. And we're going to go ahead and wire that in real quick. Again, this is super simple. All we're going to say is if nav is equal to true, then text button nav screen. But if it's false, this won't be here. And actually, there's even kind of a shorthand way to do this. This is a Python trick. You don't even have to say if nav is equal to true. You can say if nav. And that will automatically evaluate to if nav is equal to true. So if nav, text button will exist. If not, it will not exist. All right, let me go ahead and save both of these. And now let's run that one more time. There we go. So let's go to start. And now my nav screen is no longer there, but keep your eye down here on the quick menu. Oops, I just realized that I forgot to set that in my script. All right, and the final thing that we're going to do in the script is, I've already got a bit of dialogue here I left from when I was testing it earlier, where Chelsea says try clicking nav on the quick menu, but right now there is no nav, so I've got to say, and again, we've got to drop this as a Python statement. Let's say nav equals true. So now it's going to show the nav screen. And then let's go ahead and go to each of our locations, and when we go to these, let's set nav equal to false. There we go. I'm just going to copy that and paste it to each one of those, so when we jump to our new location, that nav option will no longer be on our quick menu. There we go. Now let's run that, and we should be good to go. Alright, there we go. So no nav down at the bottom. say yes. And now she says try clicking nav on the quick menu, and it magically appears. So we can click on that and then jump to any one of our locations. Let's go to the kitchen. And there we go. That is pretty much it. So that's how to create a nav menu or a nav option on the quick menu. So again, don't forget to hit the like button if you got something out of this video today, or if you liked it, and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave me a comment below if there's anything you'd like to see for a future video, if there's anything you want me to cover for Ren'Py, Python programming in general, or if you want me to do some Photoshop stuff. Be sure to check out my other channel that I will link to below, where I show you how to use Daz 3D to get some of the images that I'm using. I've got lots of great stuff there. I haven't updated it in forever, but there is tons of good info there still. So again, I'll link to that in the description below. And that will just about do us. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.